All right, well, thank you all for joining us on our first ever Colorado Intermountain Urban Community Forestry Council. I'm not exactly sure how the acronym will sound. If anyone has any suggestions, I am open. We are all open to hearing them. CIUFC. So not quite sure how that'll sound. But the reason for starting this is we have a Front Range Urban Forestry Council, and they have been meeting and communities up and down the Front Range for many, many years. Some of you have probably attended some of those meetings now that, especially that they're have some Zoom options. And when I started in this position just this year, Dana Coelho, my supervisor, suggested I see if there was any interest in starting an urban forestry council for this side of the mountain. So that's what I reached out to our Tree City USA communities, and there was some interest. So that's where this is coming from. So I am the person you keep receiving emails from. I'm sure hopefully they're helpful. But Vince Urbina was my predecessor. He was the urban community forester for the Western Slope for the State Forest Service for many, many years. He retired in 2020. And just this past year, they found the funding for this position and reflew it. And I applied and was able to get it. I have been on the Grand Junction field office for many years with the State Forest Service. So I just transitioned from field forestry to urban forestry. So the plan for this is to just have a venue for us to share stuff, what's going on this side of the hill. For us we're kind of in some silos. Some of us don't even really know our neighboring communities. And so I wanted to help us make some connections that we might not even know who to reach out to, and share what's working, what's not working, what you need help with, get suggestions from folks. So I'm really hoping this can be just a really supporting and helpful community, and that we can grow this. After this meeting, we'll send out a survey asking for what times we want to be holding these in the future. We just chose this Friday morning to just get us started. The FRUFCA, the Front Range Urban Forestry Council, meets once every 4 months, once a quarter, on the second Thursday of the month. It's a Thursday. So we're going to probably follow something along those lines to make it quarterly, but it doesn't need to be on Friday mornings, because I know not everyone works Friday mornings, but it was just a place to get us started. So I'll send out a survey asking how this went, what you'd like to hear, when you think we should hold these, and frequency, and any other comments you want to share. So that will be coming to everyone, not just who attended, but those who weren't able to attend. So we have, it looks like 25 people on here, which is awesome to get us started. So I thought we'd go around and introduce yourselves, share as much as you want, knowing that we'll have a round table at the end where you can go into more in depth of what you want to share with the group. I had some prompts in there. I put that in the chat. There's some prompts of what you might want to share. It's just an opportunity really to ask questions. It can be very interactive, as interactive as you want it to be. So I'll just call on names because I hate it when there's that weird silence. So if I miss you because names are moving around on here, please just let me know at the end, but I'm just going to work my way through the list. And again, thank you all for coming. Darren, you are first on my list. But we can't hear you, and you did unmute yourself. So Darren is the town of Olathe forester, and he has been a Tree City USA, keeping that program alive for many years. And hopefully we can get some audio from you on the roundtable. But Darren's been an awesome advocate for the urban community forestry program down there. So thank you, Darren. Dan Quemlo.
Did you just say Dan?
Dan Comlo, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. I'll come back around.
Can you unmute yourself, Dan? There you go.
How about now?
Yep, there you go.
Perfect. Good morning. My name is Dan Comlo. I am a current board member on the forestry board for the city of Grand Junction, retired nurseryman and owner of Booklift Gardens here in Grand Junction for approximately the last 40 years or so. I've been retired for about 1.5 years, 2 years. But I'm happy to be here this morning and take part in this first ever meeting and look forward to the rest of the morning.
Thank you, Dan. Rob Davis.
I don't want to just give you a little more awkward silence, Kamie, but I'll talk now. So Rob Davis, the City Forester and Open Space Supervisor for the City of Grand Junction. Been here since 2019.
Thanks, Rob. Molly Freilisher.
Good morning. Molly Freilisher, Area Specialist in Horticulture and Natural Resources with CSU Extension in the Tri-River area, which is Mesa, Delta, Montrose, and Uray counties. And I manage, coordinate the master gardeners who answer a lot of tree questions. So work with a lot of residential folks. And additionally, prior to that, I worked in urban forestry for about 15 years. So glad to be here.
Thanks, Molly. Heather Listermann.
Hello, I work for the City of Glenwood Springs. I am in the Parks and Recreation Department, and I am the Urban Ecology Supervisor and City Forester. So I work with a lot of residential homeowners and deal with a lot of code issues and stuff like that.
And Rob and Heather and David Coon will be presenting today. Carolina.
Good morning, everyone. I am Carolina Manriquez. I am a forester out of our Steamboat Springs field office for the Colorado State Forest Service. And I work with our cities and towns, support them in as much as possible in their urban struggles in protection of their values. So I'm really excited about this council. And I was wondering if during the day, I mean, I see the agenda, at some point, are we going to talk about governance and just kind of how the structure and the functioning of the council will go? Kamie?
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely put that in as part of the agenda. This is all new to me, so happy to get advice and suggestions on how to make sure this continues to live.
Yeah, this is very exciting. Thank you for the steering committee to getting it started. I think we need to be doing more of this, so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolina. Sarah Coon.
Hello. We are here as the Buena Vista Tree Advisory Board. There are actually 4 of us, but you can only see 2 of us right now. And we're very happy that this has been organized. We have so many questions about how other communities are going about their tree care and what other problems people are needing to address. We're at about 8,000 feet on the east side of the divide. We have a lot of wind. We're interested in diseases that people are dealing with and species that they're using and how they're allowing citizens to have trees in their yard. We have an Adopt a Tree program that we're looking for info on. And yeah, we're really excited about this new group.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, and advisory board.
The others.
There you are. I see you all. Chris Spicer.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the arborist, horticulturist, and gardener for the town of Basalt. We're a little tiny mountain town, but we've doubled in size in the last decade. And that brings with it all its own challenges. Half of our town is brand new. The other half in about 2 years will be brand new because they're tearing it all apart and rebuilding it. It's kind of my entire job these days. But I wear a lot of hats. You know, we don't actually have a true parks department here. So I am actually under public works, and it's just myself, and I have a turf and irrigation counterpart, and together we run pretty much everything that's green in the entire town.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Aaron Stafford. Maybe I should like pre-warn you. So Derek Lowstutter's next. Aaron Stafford's on deck. Or is on deck next. I'm not a baseball person. Oh, looks like Aaron's having struggles. Oh, there it goes.
My computers still haven't figured them out. Good morning, all. Aaron Stafford, City of Steamboat Springs. Joined this community in June of 21 as the Parks Supervisor. Recently, a new position as Parks Project Manager. So next time this team meets, there will be a new gentleman by the name of Johannes that will be joining us from the city of Denver. He is our new park supervisor. So just really excited to be part of this group and looking forward to talking more at our roundtable at the end. So thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. So Derek is on, Sean Williams is next.
Kamie. Good morning, everyone. My name is Derek Lowstutter, and I'm the Agriculture and Food System Specialist for CSU Extension, serving the mountain region. So it's 13 central mountain counties in Colorado. And as my title suggests, most of the work that I do is around growing food and then getting the food to where it will ultimately be used. But my background is in forestry. I'm a certified arborist, and my degrees are in forestry. So look forward to learning more about all the great work that's being done.
Thanks, Derek. Derek and I worked together to get a CSU intern that I'll share some information about during my roundtable section. So exciting stuff ahead. All right, Sean is on, and Alyssa is next.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. Hey, my name's Sean Williams. I'm the Public Works Director for the town of Buena Vista. So we're here in numbers. We have an advisory board here as well. And yeah, like a lot of people in this room, wear a few hats. Really excited that we were able to I was able to get up to speed on this group. And fantastic opportunity. I wanted just to make sure that, I had made some time to kind of get a little bit more information. And, when you wear a lot of hats, you tend to know a little bit about a lot of things. I'm very passionate about the outdoors, landscaping. We're a 34-year Tree City, USA here in Buena Vista. So it's something that we've been diligent with, and fantastic. Anyways, thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Alyssa, did I say your name right?
It's Lisa
Workmeister's next.
Oh, very good. Is it me, Elisa Papenfort? I'm with the City of Salida on City Council. I work for UACOG. That's my real job. And I missed my calling because my career counselor told me to be a forester, but I'm in finance. So sorry about that. But I've been a tree hugger since I've been a child. And so I'm very passionate about protecting our forest and our urban forest. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa is on, and then Donna Davis is next.
Good morning. I'm Melissa Workmaster from the Bureau of Reclamation. Our office is in Grand Junction, and we have 5 wildlife areas in this area. They range from about 160 acres to about 1,200 acres. 2 of those areas around the 160 acre range are within kind of the urban interface with Grand Junction. And we manage those areas for wildlife habitat. Recreation use is kind of secondary. One of those wildlife areas is at the confluence of the old Grand River, the Colorado River, and the Gunnison River on the southwest side. On that property, we have different blocks of about 25 years ago, we planted cottonwood trees in there, and Kamie's been out to this property. We've enjoyed working with her and and getting her expertise on a lot of our projects. Another of these areas is kind of in the center of Grand Junction also. For these areas, we have a couple full-time employees who kind of farm the properties with food plots. And we've been in the process of expanding the diversity of our trees and vegetation out there in the past 8 or 9 years, and expanding the age classes of the trees too, since really we didn't have anything between 25 years old and maybe 5 years old. This last 2 years ago, we were able to, through a mitigation project, plant 1,500 trees on the other Colorado River wildlife area. So we look forward to working with everyone as part of this group. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa. We definitely learned how not to, the distance that you should plant cottonwoods when you're planting them in rows. We learned what not to do from a long-term perspective. So Donna is up and Dan Schroeder's next.
Hello, thank you. My name is Donna Davis, and I work for the Colorado State Forest Service. I'm Kamie's counterpart on the east side. And I think the first thing I want to do is just say congratulations to Kamie and to wish her the best. And I'm just excited to be here as you get started visiting with everybody. And I guess from the perspective of some of the hats I wear, I suppose, we are working with the ISA Rocky Mountain chapter to host a certified arborist training potential in September. So kind of be looking for that. We're hoping to do it in Montrose. So a 2-day live session with a guest presenter from Arizona. He's with the Arizona Community Tree Council, so kind of like the Colorado Tree Coalition. So I just wanted to share that. And then I also kind of wanted to share that we have a Southwest Agroforestry Action Network. So I noticed a couple of your folks are master gardeners and or working with distributing food within our communities. And the SWAN is the Southwest Agroforestry Action Network. We're hosting a conference in Chatfield at the Chatfield Farms with the Denver Botanic Garden in Littleton. We're going to have a lot of speakers that are presenting on the community food forest concept and having food sourcing within some of our communities. I know Basalt, you guys have a community food park in your community, so that's pretty cool. And then Derek, just listening to you with your food distributions, it's a way to, another way to use our urban and community settings. So that is coming, and so just pay attention for that one. That's in July. And but in the meantime, though, I'm just happy to meet all these faces of folks that I have perhaps emailed over time, and now I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to offer and what you're interested in knowing about, so I can copy Kamie. Thank you.
And I will send that email out about the Chatfield stuff to everybody. Donna has sent that out to me, so I will get that forwarded. Dan is on, and David Coon is next.
Hey everyone, I'm the Summit County CSU Extension Director, and primarily my role here is, I like to call myself the county wildfire prevention guy. So I work closely with our fire departments. We have a wildfire council that I administer that's 11 different voting bodies and all kinds of neighborhood, local partners. So the cool thing about this is fire districts often have their own culture, and they don't really want it blended with others. I'm saying that from my perspective here. You know, don't let 100 years worth of tradition impede progress. That kind of comes across sometimes. So anyway, our urban forestry is to cut it all down. No, I'm teasing. Defensible spaces are number one. Forest health, forest regeneration. It's a big part of what happens here. And I'm a big part of all of that. So Extension wears many hats. Extension across the state, 64 counties, does many, many different things. In Summit County, it's primarily forestry, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. All right, David is up, and Nathan Moorman is next. I'm sure I didn't do that any justice.
Hi, David Coon, the City Forester with the City of Aspen Parks Department. Been in the role for about 4 years, and yeah, I have well, I have some challenges, you know, managing a large inventory of over mature cottonwoods, narrowleaf cottonwoods at about 8,000 feet. And I'll be talking a little bit about some of those challenges that are coming with recent drought and climate change, and so trying to preserve our mature forests and replant. Things are changing for us, so I've got my work cut out for me, and happy to be part of this group because I think it's great to share challenges and successes and things that we're all dealing with in our pockets, you know, whether it's municipal work or private sector. It's all great. It's all really good work. So I believe in what we're doing. So yep, looking forward to learning from all you guys, and happy to be here.
Thanks, David. So Nathan is on and Carl is up next.
Yeah, so I'm Nate Mormon. I'm the Parks and Facilities Manager for the City of Salida. I've spent about 16 years working in parks, mainly City of Glenwood Springs and the town of Avon. So I've had a lot of exposure to community forestry, urban forestry. Main things I'm looking for here is to make sure us as an organization, the City of Salida, that we're getting the information out to our community on our practices, making sure we're not missing out on any valuable resources. Like we've been utilizing the state forest quite a bit, and also just our local arborists, just opening the conversation for irrigation is really huge too. I know there's a lot of sentiment towards planting more trees. My big push is to make sure we're doing it sustainably, because lots of times just throwing trees in the ground and then having to have somebody go water it for the rest of its life kind of offsets its carbon footprint there. So anything we can do as far as educating that the cost of the tree is a lot more than that $500 initial investment. Getting water to it can be 10 times the project. So
good point. Thank you, Nathan. Thanks for joining. All right, Carl is up and Marilyn Moore is up next.
Hello, everybody. I'm Carl Minicki. I'm the arborist with the town of Carbondale, and I manage all the public trees and then also little flower beds around town. So pretty fun stuff, always a lot of challenges. But yeah, I'm just really excited to just hear what's going on with different people and just be part of the conversation and just learn from everybody.
Awesome. Thank you, Carl. Marilyn is up and Ryan Cox is on next.
Yeah, Marilyn Moore. I am with the Salida Tree Board. We are on the east side of the divide, but at 7,000 feet, I feel like we share a lot of the concerns that you on the western slope have as well. Our issues primarily, Nate mentioned the parks issues. We are focused more on residential forest, the urban forest. Our tree-lined streets are lined in many cases with over-mature silver maples and Siberian elms, and we're trying to rejuvenate that part of our forest. We do have an adopt-a-tree program, which has been, I would say, fairly successful. We managed to find homeowners who are willing to adopt a tree that's planted in the city right-of-way, which typically is that 4 feet between sidewalk and curb. So not a very generous area for a tree, but we've had reasonable success getting smaller and medium-sized trees to thrive in that area with the help of our homeowners. And as Nate said, trees have to be irrigated. They need to have water if they're going to survive here. So that homeowner commitment to watering the adopted trees is huge.
Cool. Thanks, Marilyn. We look forward to hearing more about that. Ryan is up and Brandon is next.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan Cox. I'm a forester with the Colorado State Forest Service in the Durango office. Urban and community forestry is pretty peripheral to our workload and our capacity for working with urban community forestry, but we do support 5 Tree City USAs and 1 Tree Campus USA out of the office to the best of our extent. So I'm just excited to have all this knowledge and experience gathered here and to be able to meet regularly and learn from you all. And I just want to say thanks to Kamie and everybody else who helped set this up. So thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Brandon is up and Andy Rice is next.
Hi, everyone. It's really great to meet all of you. I'm Brandon. I'm a certified arborist out of Grand Junction. I'm a member of the Grand Junction Forestry Board, and I'm an at-large member of the Colorado Noxious Weed Committee. And my academic background is in bioengineering and botany.
Brandon's had a very interesting background. He was Peace Corps in Africa, so he's really got some good, cool stuff. Andy is up, and last but not least, Adam Moore is after Andy.
Hi, everybody. Andy Rice. I'm City of Alamosa, Parks, Recreation, Library, Golf, Cemetery, you name it. Lots of hats, right? I'm excited to learn more. And I'll tell you, with some of those other hats, like the listserv for library directors and Parks and Rec directors, state association, it's so valuable. So that's why I'm excited that, this is getting going, and thanks, Kamie. And, I'm here to learn more. Maybe I don't have to call Adam every other day when I have a tree question, because he's my state forester. So nice to meet you all.
Cool. Thanks, Andy. So Adam's up next. I'm actually in Alamosa. Adam is in the office right there. So we're next door neighbors.
Yeah, good morning. Adam Moore, Supervisor Forester for the Southwest area. Well, in Alamosa, Supervisor Forester for Communities and Communications. That means I help our offices in Salida, Durango, Montrose, and Gunnison with our urban and community forestry needs. So kind of a middleman between Kamie and the field offices. Thanks a lot.
We have a really cool group of people here today. So thank you to everyone for sharing, and I look forward to learning more from you all. But so when we were setting up the thought of this, we're not going to go into such depth every time with the intros, but being our first couple meetings, I think it's really valuable. But we thought we'd just do a couple short programs and to get us started. So David is up first. David, you should have the ability to share your screen, and then Heather.
Yeah, Heather, I will go ahead and try to get this going. Hopefully this goes smoothly.
We're going to keep it to about 15 minutes per presenter, and then we'll do the round robin where anyone who wants to go more in depth and have some conversations, we'll go to 11 o'clock with that, and then continue our Friday.
Sounds great. So give me just a sec here to get this. All right.
There, yep.
Is everybody able to see my presentation here?
Yep.
All right. So this is a photo of cottonwood leaf beetle, which is a endemic species of leaf beetle in the state. I was previously unaware of this insect until 2 years ago when it showed up in Aspen. I say showed up, it was probably around, right? But it was not apparent in our community forests and in the forests surrounding Aspen. If you've been to Aspen, you've probably seen there's a lot of wildland urban interface, a lot of forested areas and kind of green belts, so to speak. We have drainages. We have multiple drainages coming through town. Castle Creek, Maroon Creek, Roaring Fork River. There's a lot of native cottonwood, narrowleaf cottonwood. So, like I said, 2 years ago, this showed up. So it kind of became a new concern. 2021, our narrowleaf cottonwoods in the Castle Creek drainage. So right when you come into town over the bridge, you kind of get into the west end. If you're familiar with Aspen. Right-hand side is this big forested area in the Castle Creek bottoms. You look over that canopy, and it was brown. It was like, it looked like the trees were dead, you know, and we were getting calls about it too, of course. Why is the forest dying, right? And so looking into it, figured out that it was cottonwood leaf beetle. And trying to figure out the history of it, talking with previous city foresters, contractors, other people in the city, something that we had never dealt with to our knowledge, right? In at least recent history. Of course, we're dealing with unprecedented drought conditions. Aspen has kind of generally been pretty, not had too many issues with drought, at least again in recent years. But past 6 or 7 years, we've had pretty severe drought. So trying to figure out what's going on, you know, why are we seeing an outbreak of cottonwood leaf beetle? This is an insect that, if you're not familiar with it, it can, given the right conditions, have multiple generations within a 1 year, one season. And so it can explode in its population size and become more apparent and have wider spread impacts, and start, instead of targeting just younger trees, which it historically or generally characteristically does, it can start going after larger trees, which is what we were seeing. So it became a concern, right? It got our attention. Well, fast forward summer 2022, last summer, it happened again. And we were kind of surprised because, you know, according to what extension publications say and everything, it's generally a kind of a one-off deal when you get these population explosions. So it happened again, and of course that got our attention again, and we started to kind of look at, well, what's going on here? Is this a trend? Is this a recurring issue that could cause stress on our trees, where historically a cottonwood leaf beetle just defoliates the tree can recover, you know, grow leaves within that season or following year, and not really sustain too much stress from it. But as we all know, repeated stress can cause decline and things like that. So we started to document the trees, and you can kind of see this is what's at stake. You know, we've got in the west end, we've got great canopy cover, mature cottonwoods that give us that canopy cover. This is actually a photo on the left of a tree that is affected. You can see it's pretty brown and defoliated looking. So it's not in its full glory, but mature forest, and a lot of it is, unfortunately, I guess, or for better or worse, it's comprised of cottonwood. So we have somewhat of a monoculture for our large stature deciduous canopy. The right side is just showing the size and stature of some of our cottonwoods. Here's a ball shot, overlooking town. You can see the canopy. This is what's at stake. This is what we, if we have stressors or multiple stressors that come in and start killing large numbers of trees. I don't think cottonwood leaf beetle is necessarily this, but say we have a foreign pest, right? We all know urban forestry wise, that's a big concern. So we are definitely looking at issues with our diversity. But for now, we have our over mature cottonwoods. We have over 350 that are over 30 inch and just in the right of way. There's a lot of them on private property and around town, like you said, in the drainages and wherever, right? Where cottonwoods like to grow. We have trees that are stressed by age, decay, pests such as, and another pest that actually is worth noting because Eriophide mite gall is similar to cottonwood leaf beetle in that it's not known to be a primary cause of decline or death, but we've been dealing with it for over a decade, and we've seen trees go into decline, at least correlated with it, whether it's caused by this mite gall, which I think in our last meeting I showed one of these galls these woody galls that grow at the base of the buds on trees, and they can become a big issue in terms of causing extra loading and breakage of trees, and so they are an issue. They're at least a sign of stress and decline in some of our mature cottonwoods. And so what I decided to do was, well, why don't we map this thing? Why don't we map the cottonwood leaf beetle? We have our Eriophide mite gall trees pretty well mapped. Why don't we use our tree inventory to figure out where the overlap is, where we have what I would call comorbidities. Because we have trees that are really valuable, right? That we want to preserve. And where do we want to put our efforts, right? We can't treat every tree that has cottonwood leaf beetle or every tree that has Eriophide mite gall. But we can decide, if we have the information, we have data, we can decide which trees to treat. So here's another photo of one in the West End that was pretty heavily defoliated. Something like this happens year after year. It's going to stress a tree, right, and potentially cause some issues. So I'm going to show you real quick. I basically have taken, whittled down, we use Tree Plotter for our inventory. I've used, hopefully I can share this. I was going to try to give you guys screenshots too, but I'm going to actually pull up Tree Plotter and share this. How much time do I have left, Kamie? Are you?
I'm here.
How are we doing on time?
Minutes.
Sorry.
Yeah, 8.5 minutes in.
8.5 minutes in. Okay. So I'm going to share this other screen so I can just show you Tree Plotter real quick. And stop sharing. Does anybody have any questions so far as I load up Tree Plotter just to show you our data and work order real quick, so you can kind of get an idea of how we're using this? Does that kind of make sense so far, or at least our line of thinking in terms of how we're dealing with this thing, this unprecedented pest that's causing widespread impacts to our trees? Sorry, what was that?
I'm not sure that was intentional.
Oh, okay. New share, here we go. All right, so can everybody see this?
We're still seeing your same original screen. Oh, there it is. Yep, Tree Plotter's up.
Okay, so essentially what you can do with a program like this is you can do a lot of filtering. So you have data, right? You have trees, they have attributes, which may include things like, well, in this case, we decided to add an attribute to our trees, which said is cottonwood leaf beetle present? So are we seeing like the window pane sort of foliar feeding that the larvae do, which is, turns leaves brown. And if you look at them closely, you can see there's like holes, small holes within the veins, right? And then the adults will also chew the margins of the leaves. So what we did was we conducted a survey, right, of town, which is basically this whole gridded area, right? And if I turn off, well, I'm not going to turn it off. You can see there'll be, if I didn't have the filter on that I do right now, you would see all of our tree points. So we went through and basically made observations of where the foliation was happening. And you can see like this particular tree that is one of the trees that we've narrowed everything down to. It has all these attributes, and then we added well, see, you've got gall, right? So gall is one of the twig gall is one of the things that we've been mapping. So cottonwood leaf beetle present, yes. Leaf beetle defoliation greater than 50%. All right, so this is one of those trees that when I filtered it out, it falls in this category of severe defoliation, right? It has urified mite gall. So we've got this comorbidity, and it's a larger stature tree. And I went around and looked at a number of trees and actually figured out which ones are worth saving, so to speak, ones that aren't already in decline. We have some, every year we have trees that need to be removed because they have come to the end of their lifespan. So we have these over mature cottonwoods. But these are trees that, can you guys see the red dots? I don't know if it's coming through on Zoom, but
yeah, I can
this is what we narrowed it down to. And this came out of over 50 trees that were heavily affected, but those didn't have comorbidities. They weren't already showing signs of stress. So we're not concerned that like, hey, if we don't treat these or do something, we don't take some action on these trees, we're going to potentially see them go into decline if they have another year of defoliation by this cottonwood leaf beetle, right? What's interesting about this to me, and I think interesting to note, is as urban trees, right? These are trees that we've given a pretty pampered life, right? I'll just show you like a street view of.
You got about a minute left.
Okay, these are urban trees, right? We've pruned these for years. They've been irrigated. They've had a good life. They're over mature. I mean, some of them are over 100 years old. I think the average lifespan of an early cottonwood is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe, I don't know, 50 to 60. If I were to venture a guess, I don't really know, but something like that, right? So we're dealing with, so when we have this endemic forest pest come out and the populations explode, they start getting on, coming into our urban canopy and affecting our trees in the urban forest. We're looking at something that's not really standard, right? I mean, this is not an issue that I think maybe a lot of extension agents or the studies have been done on, right? Where we have drought stressed, over mature trees, right? That are in this concentration. So the beetles are, the concern, I guess, that we have is that these beetles could take these trees into decline, or cause decline in our trees, and we have losses that we could otherwise avoid. So the plan is to take this data that we've gotten and information, and we're going to systemically treat some of these trees for both mite gall and cottonwood leaf beetle, and we're going to see how it goes. So we'll happy to provide updates as we do that. in terms of the efficacy of the treatments. And hopefully we can get out in front of this. And if anybody else deals with this, I'd love to hear. I have for Dan West, Kamie. Dan told me that some other communities are dealing with cotton relief beetle problems as well. So it's not just us, I guess. So anyway, thanks for everybody's time.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's interesting to see.
Yeah.
Well, anyone who has questions, we can bring that up in the round table because we're going to move on to Heather's presentation. So thank you.
Yeah,
so I think if
my pleasure.
Heather, you might be able to just take over sharing.
Let's pause share. Stop. All right, I stopped sharing, so I think hopefully that helps.
All right, we see your screen, Heather.
Okay, great. So hello again, everyone. So what we've been dealing with here in Glenwood Springs is kind of some similar things as David, where we've got, it's kind of a smaller area, but we have a lot of trees. The core difference being that we only care for our trees on public properties and parklands. We don't care for anything in the public right of way. Here we have code that actually states that the adjacent property owner is supposed to be responsible for their trees. It's something that we have been having some issues with recently. And so since I started about a year ago, we've been kind of embarking on this journey of how to resolve some of these issues. So my presentation is kind of just an overview of our us creating a new inventory and updating some of the ways we do things here. So getting started. When I became the urban ecology supervisor and city forester last year, I realized that the inventory that we hadn't really been fully updated in many, many years. In addition to our community forestry program, which the State Forest Service helped us with a very long time ago. The last full inventory that was done was completed in 1997, I believe. So we had a lot of work to do. And when we started inventorying trees, we were initially doing some of that work in-house and contracting some folks out to come and check things out because we noticed some pretty drastic decline in a lot of our pinyon pines and even some of our ponderosas in the parks and spruce trees, blue spruce. So with the help of Kamie Long and a few other certified arborists, we kind of came to the conclusion that we were battling some Ips beetles in our area. And I'm sure that most of the people here are very aware of what Ips beetles are, so I'm not going to go over the details. But basically, we were seeing a lot of dieback on our pine trees. We were seeing pitch tubes and various other indicators. So after reaching out and helping to confirm that that was the issue that we were experiencing, we decided that we needed to do a complete inventory overhaul and really look closely at all of our right-of-way trees because we were having more and more complaints from residents about trees dying and who's going to take care of them. And I think more often than not, we were hearing from folks who just didn't understand why they were supposed to be taking care of the trees in the right of way. I think there's been a little back and forth, and occasionally the city had kind of come to folks' aid and helped to take care of trees, and sometimes not. So what we wanted to do was just really get our eyes on the entire canopy, figure out the extent of the issues that we're going to be facing, and what we want to be able to educate the public about. So we did post some information online about Ips beetles. We did a couple of PSAs about it. There were some articles in the local newspaper, and we also sent out flyers in water bills, talking to people about, you know, how this came to be and the years of drought and stress potentially exacerbating the issue, which is great. We actually received a lot of phone calls of people reporting trees in their yards, and we were able to track those as well when we decided to do the inventory. So in addition to updating that inventory, we did a few other things, such as updating some of our recommended tree lists, making them available to the public, and making them available on some new pages that we added to the website within the Parks and Recreation Division. And most importantly, we developed a right-of-way tree care assistance program, which is something I want to just touch on at the very end of this. First and most importantly, that updated inventory, as I've already stated, hadn't been updated fully in a very long time. It looks like we had arborists here over the past decade or so that had made a few tweaks here and there, and we just hadn't had a full inventory done. So we had about 2,000 trees plotted that many of them hadn't been updated since late 90s. And so we, like David and his city, decided to get on the tree plotter board, and we had Planet Geo send some contractors out to help us to plot all of these trees, and we redid the whole thing. David actually helped us with that. Thank you, David. And so we plotted about 6,000 trees, discovered kind of what the majority of trees in our right-of-way were, which wasn't really a big surprise. A lot of Siberian elms, a lot of green ash, a lot of honey locust. And it also helped to identify some other issues in our canopy. I kind of already touched base on the fact that we updated some tree lists, which is something we wanted to do to help provide people with suggestions for tree replacements, and also provide a little bit more information, because you know, we've got a lot of folks that are really excited to plant aspen trees in their front yard, and there's a few small suggestions that we have in here to kind of help steer people towards making the right decision when replacing trees that are definitely going to be needing to come down. We have a lot of older trees that are beyond mature that really need to come down. And on the website where we posted these lists, we also posted some tree care tips. We have information to all of our permitting, information about our new tree board, and information about just right-of-way trees in general and what our municipal code means, just broken down in very simple language. And then the thing that I'm probably most excited about is this tree care assistance program. So this is something after we've really pressed City Council about this for many months this past year, and after doing some inventory updates and identifying some of those Ips beetle issues and really talking to them in depth about how serious of an impact it could have on our overall canopy, they approved a small budget for us for it's like a grant reimbursement program is what it is. And what we're doing is providing this in the form of an application. Any City of Glenwood Springs resident can submit an application for their right-of-way tree that is in serious need. And it's something that we have not really pushed very hard yet, because we want to kind of push it alongside with our educational materials that are going to be coming out this year. We'll be sending more educational materials out in various utility bills to kind of talk to people about taking care of their right-of-way trees. And kind of somewhat unfortunately, but also fortunately, we had this really wild windstorm. It took down a ton of our enormous blue spruces in the right-of-way this past week. And I think people are kind of, that's always an awakening for the public, for sure. You have a massive, nearly 100-foot tree fall down and almost crush a house, but not quite. And then people, they start to wonder, okay, who's supposed to take care of this? And that's when I start getting phone calls. So, I guess just to end this up pretty quickly, I know that it wasn't the full 15 minutes, but you know, I'm really excited to be a part of this group, especially as a somewhat younger certified arborist. I've only been certified for a year or less, and I've only been in this role for about a year or so. So I'm really excited to be a part of this whole group, to learn from everybody else, and particularly when it comes to public education and tree inventory management. Those are kind of my two big passions right now.
That's great, Heather. Thank you. It'll be really interesting to see how your reimbursement program goes. I think a lot of us will be interested to see what you learn, what we can learn from you.
Thank you.
And I'm sure if anyone has experience with that, if they want to share that with Heather, I'm sure she would. And I guess I'm speaking for you, but maybe you wouldn't want to hear what everyone.
I would absolutely love to hear what everybody else's experience is. It's a little scary for sure, launching something for the first time like this. But yeah, what I'm really hoping to do is kind of steer away from this kind of like cherry picking assistance, you know, and have more structure to it, so that we have ground to stand on when it comes to how are we spending our money and why.
Right. If there's a process and people know how to follow it, if there's no process, then people don't know what to do. So it makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you, Heather. Rob, you are up next.
Okay, let's see.
And Brandon asked if these presentations will be made available, and we can do that. And this is also being recorded, and I'll share all that. That's one of the questions I want to ask the group at the end, is how we can share documents best. Not sure the best, if people can access Google Docs or not. I know some people have their agencies limit that. So something we can talk about at the end. So go ahead, Rob. Thank you.
Kamie, can you guys see my screen?
No.
That's great. Try this again. Share.
Yes, it is. We see a blue window.
Okay, well, how about that? You see that?
That we see.
Okay, I've got 15 minutes and I've got about 42 slides. So if you guys have ever seen me present before, I like to go really fast and show lots of pictures. So just to give you a little background about me, born and raised in Colorado, went to CSU of a forestry management degree. I started at Fort Collins Nursery for about 6 years on the nursery side. And then I went into urban forestry. I worked with the city of Greeley, was the city forester for the town of Windsor, and then the city forester for the city of Westminster, and then was the city forester for the city and county of Denver for 9 years. I start with this slide because that was my drive every day for 9 years. If you guys have ever experienced I-25, it just gives me extreme anxiety to even think about going back there. So 2019, I left the traffic of I-25 and jumped over to Grand Junction. This is a picture of Grand Junction back in the 1800s, and I always like to have black and white pictures in my presentations for some reason, but I do that because I think it's the process of people's work over a lot of years in the transformation to create a more livable city. There's just an overview of Grand Junction. Grand Junction last year got its 40th year Tree City USA recognition. The city's had a lot of years of very high quality urban forestry programming. In the different cities I've worked in, I've done kind of a mix of all of them. One of the things that I liked about Grand Junction is it's modeled a little bit more like a Fort Collins program where we maintain all public trees. So that's parks, that's facilities, and that's street trees. Basically a rough number, about 17,000 public trees that are directly under the city's care. What I was told my presentation was supposed to be was a talk about what we've done with a problem with our ash trees here, and kind of an overview of how I was able to just gain public support to help fund response. So it really goes back to 2021. We had an enormous backlog of work requests. So one of the fun things about taking on street trees is it's really easy for a resident to say, come trim my tree in my front yard for free. And it's very easy to have those requests build and back up. So in 2021, when we were getting calls for people, we would let them know, we've got your request. We are currently treating requests from about 1.5 years before yours. So it's going to be a bit before we get to you. Most of those were street tree focused. The other challenge in 2021 was we had one frozen arborist position, and then the other two both got promoted into other crew leader positions. So we went from having 3 arborists to 0. And at the same time, our ash tree population in the city, which was our #1 most common public tree, was completely crashing under pressure from an insect that isn't supposed to be a problem. So you can see just a couple of ash there getting hammered by ash bark beetle. So I love Google Street View. I wish Google would drive around Grand Junction more, but you can kind of capture change really well with this. So this is a few streets that have changed dramatically over the years. This is Orchard Avenue in 2012. 2019, you can see a little bit of top dieback in some of those ash. And then in 2021, you can see that bark beetle just hammering these trees. Currently, all of those are gone. Here's Grand Avenue, one of our main streets through town. That 18 looked like that. 2021 looks like that. And currently, most of those are gone with little baby replanted trees. Last one, this is up 7th Street, another major corridor that runs near Colorado Mesa University. Looks like a beautiful place to live, nice place to buy a house. Ash bark beetle started coming in and we lost all of those trees. So this dramatic impact on the city was happening, really focused around an insect that's a native that really is not behaving properly. So I'm assuming most of you guys know both of these. This is the 2 insects that are kind of doing the 1-2 punch on our ash trees. You've got lilac ash borer on the left, and then ash bark beetle on the right. They're combining into our trees here with the lilac ash borer kind of typically hitting down lower in the main trunk, and ash bark beetle supposedly just going after dead, weak, stressed trees and smaller branches. Just the ash bark beetle populations have exploded. There's some gamosis showing up in some trees that have been hit really hard. The most unusual thing about this is the damage from the ash bark beetle is it's getting into big mature trees. It's hitting large diameter limbs. You can see some of the staining on the right there in a white ash that is starting to succumb to the pressure from that insect. So I like to show these fact sheets because when we started trying to dig into how to manage an ash bark beetle, pretty much everything said control's not warranted, keep your trees healthy, and it's not a problem. So there's just very little research out there on what to do. So you've got ash bark beetle, you've got lilac ash borer, and then of course, I'm sure most of you know, I left the Front Range and the challenges of emerald ash borer in 19 to get away from it, yet we've got these 2 insects that are behaving a lot like it. So these two natives plus that spread along the Front Range. Now, I think Thornton up to Fort Collins is kind of where we're at with emerald ash borer on the Front Range, but knowing that's one wood movement away from seeing trees like this over here. That's a an adult that I got off of a tree in Boulder in 2013. And that's a big vertical crack in an ash that was kind of near the CU campus. And just, you know, you think you're safe with not having that here, but got these 3 bugs that are really a serious issue coming potentially our way. So I had great information about our public trees. We've got an active street tree inventory. We knew where all of our street trees and park trees were, where our ash trees were. And when you start plotting that in maps and you say, show me where our ash trees are, these are the kind of visuals that help when you start talking to leadership about the challenges of a single tree species collapsing under the pressure of insects. And you can start to really get into, you know, elected officials' ears about, this is not a park problem. This is a citywide problem that's affecting all of our elected council members' constituents on a citywide scale. So I believe I'm kind of covered up there, but I think it's 33,200 public ash trees, about 23% of our inventory. So it's a big deal to try to manage this. So I like doing metrics. I like trying to track things. So it really is your key to getting budget improvements. So I try to do annual reports to our leadership. This was in 2021. I kind of created this just simple state of the urban forest here, noting, you know, that our number of requests with ash trees going down like that were spiking and dramatically increasing. We were sitting on 160 existing work orders. Our arborists, our skilled arborists had fallen off. I think one important piece for leadership is you can hire somebody to be an arborist, but it takes a long time to be a good arborist. And I always use the analogy of, you know, you can give a person a pair of ice skates and tell them to go play hockey, but it doesn't mean they're going to be good at it right away. It takes practice, it takes skill, and it takes time. So kind of getting this in front of leadership, talking about the problems, you know, emails are good, spreadsheets are good, maps are good, but one of the things that I learned while I was in Denver and EAB was in Boulder and spreading, I reached out to a group. I got a council member. You can see Dan West in that picture. Got mayor's office. I got a finance director. I got CSU extension, just a whole mix of people in Denver. And I said, what do you think about us doing a road trip and flying us out? And let's see what emerald ash borer looks like in cities where it's already kind of done its thing. So I got a group of people from Denver. We flew out to Chicago, met with people in Chicago and some of the surrounding residential, I guess, suburban cities, and just said, tell us what you did and tell us what you wish you would have done better and the things that worked. And we kind of got that in Chicago, got a field tour, and then we went up to Milwaukee. That's David Sevier there, City Forester Milwaukee, who put together a really great program. And then from there, we went over to Madison and just got this really great feel. But one thing I took away from that, I guess 2 things. One was an extremely large budget increase for Denver's forestry program. But 2, there's nothing better than getting people out in the field to see it themselves. So what I did is I reached out to our director and city manager and I said, there's a real problem and you guys need to see it. And so I just put together a tour and I got them in a car with me and I just drove them around Grand Junction and went down streets where the ash were in really tough shape and just got them a feel for what we were up against. Also showed them places in town where there's good visuals of trees that we had treatment programs going that were really close to trees on private property where there haven't been, just to give them a feel for treated versus untreated and why, you know, a treatment program. I always tell them you can either manage the bug or that you can let the bug manage you, and it's way better from a public perception standpoint if you can talk about how you are working to manage the bug problem. So the other piece to this that's really important, when it came to Junction, we didn't have canopy data and we didn't have a lot more than, you know, trees are really important. That's, you know, the tree hugger kind of piece coming from us. So I worked with, they've been referenced a few times, but I worked with the Planet Geo, talked to them about how hard it is for a small city to to throw $100,000 at a canopy assessment. And Ian kind of got me excited about the Planet Geo canopy software. We got a subscription. The way that works is you pay about $7,000 and you get a subscription to a program that can give you a really active way of looking at your canopy. And I threw a little bit more funding at it to produce, you know, some canopy data that now we can say this is how much we're getting back from the environmental services of our canopy. And then that translates to this is what's at risk from an environmental services standpoint. I also had paid Ian a little bit, or Planet Geo a little more to dig into like actual numbers. So how many trees are in our full canopy, knowing that roughly in the urban development boundary of Grand Junction, we have 228,000 total trees. If we're conservative and assume 12% of those are ash, that's 27,000 trees. They're at risk. We know that you know, has an asset value as a whole of about $1 billion. You know, so you can start to translate not just environmental service loss, but also asset value loss and what's at risk. So after that tour, city manager said, okay, what should we do? And I threw a giant spreadsheet at him and said, you know, here's this is the Cadillac, the Toyota, and the Pinto options that are out there. You can pick which one you want to go for. And all of them have big price tags. And so from that, we were able to kind of work towards, honestly, probably, you know, obviously the Cadillac's a lot and it's the perfect world. We got a much lower level, but it's still significant. We got an increase around $220,000 and we got a full-time position to be unfrozen. So we filled that one. And we also added a full-time to put us up to 2 tree crews. It's kind of pointless to have 2 bucket trucks, 2 chippers, 2 chip trucks when you have, you know, 3 arborists. It just means one set of equipment's really sitting there. So we increased our full-time staffing. He also threw some additional project crew people at us and kind of paired them up with some of our arborists. And we had a 3-month rental on a 3rd bucket truck and a 3rd chipper and worked all that in 2021 to really make a strong push at all of this stuff. But basically what it translates to breaking down is we added $45,000 in contract services, added a $77,000 contract services program towards private ash treatment, and then $8,000 in marketing, added $40,000 in nursery stock, $50,000 towards chemicals for in-house treatments. And then I also convinced them that our old really sad and decrepit crane truck was just not efficient. And we were able to kind of work through a purchasing process, which I don't know if you guys are trying to buy trucks right now, but it's incredibly painful to get a truck anytime close to when you expect to. So we worked through that to get this grapple in a much shorter timeline, which is just incredibly faster, and it just moves our efficiency to a higher level. So that program, what it jumped into is he said, okay, great, here's the money, now treat all the trees, which yay, money, boo, trying to figure that out. So we started with a program we were trunk injecting all 25-inch ash on a 3-year rotation. And we were going towards this dinotefron trunk spray program. And one of the challenges is there's just no research on what's the best treatment for this insect. So what you're looking at here are some side-by-side slides of when we first inventoried and inspected and how well the tree held up a couple years later from treatments. The trunk sprays, this is one example where the trees look great. And then we had a whole lot of examples where the trunk spray just wasn't doing it and the trees were still collapsing. And I use this example here because you can see the irrigated turf. A lot of these big trees are going down and it's not necessarily related to I'm going to xeriscape my yard and save water and let all my mature trees die kind of scenario. The good news was the trunk injections or emamectin benzoate treatments. What we found from that was every one of the trees that we did emamectin on, we didn't see any decline. Every tree held steady and was doing well. So basically we had to look at that, break it all down by size classes. And what we ended up moving towards this year is we're moving away from the trunk sprays. We're going really to a much more aggressive trunk injection program. trying to get through just under 500 trunk injected trees a year. We're going to be doing all 13-inch and larger. And unfortunately, the ash that are 12 inches and larger, you get this reality of cost benefit. And those smaller trees, we're just going to start pushing towards replace instead of treat. Trunk injection is way slower. It's going to take us probably a month and a half with 2 crews of trunk injections to get through that. So that's a challenge in its own right. Just to touch real quick, and hopefully I wanted to set a timer, but Kamie, tell me if I'm getting too close.
You're beyond, but my topic was talking about Tree City USA, and everyone on this call is a Tree City USA. So I'll cut mine short.
Okay, I'll roll through this quick. So we started a private ash treatment program with residents. This was a council idea based on all the information we were getting to them. So that we have this Root for Our Trees program that's in place now. This is our 2nd year. The requirement is you have to be a resident. You have to be on a residentially zoned lot. Your tree's got to be 8 inches and larger. It's got to have 70% canopy, healthy or better. Your yard has to have signs of stewardship. And if all those things work out, you apply for us online, and the city will split half the cost with you for trunk injection, max $500 per property, and quotes, 0 admin burden, which I would say that was a council goal, but it's not always 0 admin burden. So if you want more about that, I can tell you about it. So people basically go to our website, they sign up, and we're coordinating with T4 Tree Service. T4 handles all the communication in theory, and they do all the work for the private side. Last year we got through 639 private trees treated. There's a little map showing kind of where they ended up plotting out around city limits. It was interesting because it really fell towards neighborhoods where homes were constructed in the early 2000s, but that's when ash trees were the thing, and those new neighborhoods planted a whole lot of ash trees. What do we do with marketing? We created the Root for the Trees program. We've got our arborists wearing these high-vis shirts now, giving out a lot of these hats. We sent out 10,000 direct mail postcards about the program this year to residents. And as Arbor Day comes up this year, we've got a new set of shirts. And my favorite thing about the shirts is they're my walking billboards. And if people like them and they walk around with them, they've got our tree benefits on the back, just to kind of, hopefully somebody standing behind somebody at a grocery store might realize that the trees here, they do a lot of good things, even though you can't always see it. So that's, sorry for being longer, but that's my talk. So there you go, Kamie.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been a big lift by the forestry division to make this happen. So I know it's really benefiting the community. So thank you for that. Well, I'll just jump into mine real quick. I have altered it during Rob's presentation because I realized that everybody on this call is part of a tree city. So can you all see my screen? Rob? Okay. Yep. So just a little bit of background on Tree City. It's been around since 1976. Colorado Springs is our oldest community in Colorado. It's about 95 Tree City communities right now. In 2021, they haven't updated to the 2022 data, but over 1,400 trees were planted in Colorado, and all the communities spent over $31 million. So that's pretty impressive. So I wanted to call out the 30 and over club, which a good chunk of those communities are on this call right now. So this is the 2023 numbers. I wanted to have the most up to date. So congratulations to all of our 30 and over club. So just real quick, the standards: you have to have a tree board or somebody who manages the trees. You have to have an ordinance. Arbor Foundation is looking at some of these ordinances, and they're going to be updating the requirements of what an ordinance needs to contain. So we'll be getting more information about that sooner or later. $2 per capita per person on the budget, and have an Arbor Day observance and proclamation every year. So you have to fill out that application every year, which I poke a lot of you at. it shouldn't take you too long to do it. So if you're struggling with any applications, please reach out to your local CSFS office for assistance, because we are able to log in and see what you're seeing, and we can help you move through the process faster. So I wanted to talk real quick about Tree Campus. It's recognizing best practices in campus community forestry. So it's based on the Tree City USA model, and it's standards-based, encouraged tree practices on these campuses. And we only have 6 in Colorado: Colorado College in Colorado Springs, Colorado Mesa, and Grand Junction. I think we all know where Colorado State University is, Fort Lewis and Durango, University of Colorado, and then University of Northern Colorado and Greeley. So there is an opportunity for us to get more tree campuses in this program. And so if you're in a community that has a college that's not in this program, and you think that they might be interested, here is some information. There are standards, just like Tree City. You have to have an advisory committee. And so what that is someone from facilities, someone from faculty, a student, and a community member. So like for the Colorado Mesa University, I'm the community member on that board. We have a student that rotate. The problem with the student is they rotate through, right? They graduate, so you have to constantly have a new student on the committee, but that's okay. Faculty is really important, and facilities is critical to be on that committee, because you can't do any tree management on a campus without bringing facilities in. So you have to have a tree care plan, which takes a little bit of time putting it together, and it should be goal-oriented and provide the opportunity to set good policy and clear guidance for planting, maintaining, and removing trees. And so we have some examples. So you're not creating anything from scratch. If you decide to move forward with helping create a tree care plan to get a campus in this program, happy to help with the process and provide really good examples. So you're not recreating the wheel here. You do have to have dedicated expenditures, just like the Tree City, but they are looking more for $3 per full-time student, but it's just suggested. It states clearly on their website that it's not a requirement. Just like the other program, you have to observe Arbor Day, but this, they add a service project, learning project. And so this can be, so you have to do 2 activities every year with your campus, 1 an Arbor Day and 2 a project. At CMU, Colorado Mesa, we tend to just do another planting, but we have done some other things, especially during COVID. There was a student-led tree inventory where people worked on their own. But there's some good opportunities for this Civic project that you can kind of think beyond the basics, but you do have to do 2 projects a year. So that's the Tree Campus program. The Arbor Day Foundation does have some additional programs, one for healthcare campuses, like hospitals, and one for K through 12. Both of those campuses can be a tree campus or a tree healthcare program. So if you know of any of those types of groups who might be interested in getting into this tree care world, I'd be happy to work with you and answer questions. And since y'all are on the tree care or tree USA program, I just wanted to let you know, I added this right now. So there is the Colorado Tree View, which is a free tree inventory online program that communities can use to enter their tree data into. It's online based, it's free to use, so you don't have to download an application, you just log onto the website. So you do need to have internet access accessible on whatever device you're using. And when you go to their website, you can go to and set up an account. And so I wanted just to share this with you because I'm going to do a full presentation on this, how to enter data into the program on April 24th at 10 a.m. And if you're interested, send me an email and I'll send you the Zoom link. But I wanted to let you know that this existed if you're interested in getting more information, so you could set up an account and then be able to follow along when we do the presentation. And then what's also nice is you can export the data as a shapefile or a CSV file and enter it into other GIS software, or vice versa. If you already have your data, your tree data in as a shapefile in a different GIS software, you can upload it into Tree Plotter so it's viewable by the public. So ColoradoTreeView.com is the website to go and create an account if you don't have one already. And then, like I said, I'm gonna do a full training on this. We'll walk you through all the steps on April 24th at 10. Send me an email if you're interested and I'll get you that Zoom link. So fast and dirty on that. Now we will go into that round robin session where it's just going to be whoever wants to speak up and ask questions. If you want to share, I'm not really going to call on anyone because maybe not everyone wants to share, but I did put in the chat, back at the top of the chat, some items you could share. So that says what has been working for your urban forestry program, what hasn't been working, what are you hoping to get out of the meetings, how will you celebrate Arbor Day this year, what trainings, either in person or virtually, would be useful, what species has been successful or not, and what are the needs of your group to be successful in the urban forestry world. So just some prompts. So please, let's chat.
I wanted to jump in real quick since I might have to hop off a little early before this ends. But it kind of reminded me hearing a lot about emerald ash borer and ash tree problems. I moved to Basalt about 2.5 years ago, and I was previously an arborist, a plant health manager for a private company in Chicago. My entire career started in Michigan, dealing with emerald ash borer showing up there in the early 2000s. And then, of course, I moved to Chicago, where it had just showed up in the late 2000s. And I worked at the Chicago Botanic Garden for about 2.5 years, going through their initial. We called ourselves the Noah's Ark of Chicago because we had so many cultivars and weird species of ash, and all of them to some extent were affected by emerald ash borer. So we had to create a program where we picked kind of the best 1 or 2 of every cultivar that we had, aggressively treated those, and then come up with a management program of how we could annually not overwhelm ourselves with removals, things like that, on costs. As well as then dealing with a 50+ acre native woodland area that was about 25% ash trees, and how to deal with that. Finally got through that whole process, and when I left Chicago in 2020, I moved out here. There really aren't any ash trees in Chicago left that aren't treated or dead. And then, of course, I moved out here, and first thing I noticed day one driving through Basalt is that the prior arborist was really fond of ash trees, I think because they're a really nice, easy street tree. They have great fall color. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to them, but really enjoyed the monoculture or the continuity of having 100 ash trees lining each of our streets. And now it's like I'm just living in Groundhog's Day, repeating my entire career over again, kind of planning for that eventual arrival of emerald ash borer. Although I have talked to a lot of colleagues that live in Minnesota, and they actually have a lot of dieback in the winter of that particular insect. So there are some, causes for hope that they may not actually be able to handle our elevation and duration of cold season. That they kind of have to move back into the area every year to kind of reestablish themselves. So it's a much slower process. But if anybody has any questions about that stuff, or I'm very good at identifying emerald ash borer these days. We've dealt with some lilac borer in the town here, and I've kind of had to recalibrate the differences between that particular borer and emerald ash borer. They kind of show up similarly to start, but there's some key differences. I know I reached out to Kamie last summer. We had a couple trees that had really bad lilac ash borer that showed up all of a sudden, and kind of got my gears turning. That I was like, oh no, not here it comes. And I've been spending the last couple of years prepping our town council and our town manager for what it's going to mean eventually when we do need to start talking about massive replacements, removals, treatment programs. And I deal with a very small population of trees in my town relative to someone like, in Grand Junction, where you're looking at 14,000, 30,000 trees. We've got about 2,500 here. and probably about 3,000 after next year with all the new subdivisions coming online. But I'd be happy to be a resource if anybody reaches out to me if you had questions about ash borer. If you ever have something that's kind of symptomatic, I'm happy to take a look at it if I'm in your area. And I'm always happy to reach out and help.
Awesome. That's great, Chris. I didn't know that was your background, so thanks for sharing.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's been just kind of weird. Just I feel like I'm moving with emerald ash borer across the country and just redoing the last 3 years of my career over and over again.
Well, I'm sure communities hope you don't move to them then.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. I'm actually a little bit ahead of the curve this time here, where it hasn't shown up yet. So it gives me a little bit of a chance to get everybody prepared for it.
Cool. Thank you. I know Aaron wanted to share something about some opportunities in his community.
Yeah, thank you. Just a little bit, I guess I can go back to the prompts. Let me see if I can bring this up. For some of the things that haven't been going well, in the last couple decades in Steamboat. So a little bit about Steamboat. We actually haven't had a full-time arborist or forester since 2010. So we can relate to those folks that have been struggling with resource restrictions, whether it be staffing, equipment, budget. Steamboat also has, some limitations on our, long-term planning and documentation around trees, public trees, right-of-way standards. So we're looking into that. I just want to say thank you to everybody that has spoken today. And I guess what I'm looking forward most with this group is just learning from everybody, building a network, and then trying to expand on what we're doing in Steamboat Springs and really bringing it to the best standards and levels as possible. So thank you, everybody. Couple cool things that have been going on since I've been here in 2021. We have had some traction with some funding. We've been working with some local agencies. We were approved for the furworm grant, which is a huge deal. It's helping us purchase a chip truck and a chipper, which we've never had in this community. So that's a big deal. That's going to help do some forest field mitigation on some of our private areas, or public lands on Howison Hill, roughly 80 acres. We have some money in their budget for contract services as well, which is really cool. Part of that is also going to be for some home emission zones that we'll be working in. So that is actually a collaboration with the City of Steamboat Springs Parks, Rec, and Fire Department. So pretty cool stuff. That's a huge win. I think
I was going to just jump in and tell folks, furworm is a CSFS grant program for forest restoration and wildfire risk mitigation. I think I got that right. And so we opened it up this past year, in the past couple of years, to not just do funding for projects, but also for purchasing of equipment. And so that's awesome to hear that Steamboat got some money to buy some equipment.
Yeah, the plan for that program is just awesome. Working with our fire department and some of their wildland group, I'm super excited to be just somewhat affiliated with it. It's awesome. So we appreciate it and we look forward to the opportunity. Kamie was setting me up for a little shameless plug. So currently, we haven't had a full-time arborist or forester since 2010, and we've been having a returning seasonal that we've relied on for the last 7 years, who's been a rock star, got a lot of certification with us. Well, he's choosing a different career. So currently we have a job posting. So if you know anybody that's interested in working in Steamboat, doing some trees, please send them our way. Besides that, not a whole lot of other stuff. Looking forward to Arbor Day. We won't do anything on the day proper because we'll probably still be covered in snow. Looking to actually partner with some of our local private tree companies and do a day in a park with trees. And they're excited about providing some education to the community. Again, given that we don't have the appropriate staff to provide that right now, and still kind of in the works to finish the details on that. Besides that, I don't have a whole lot. Again, just thank you. Looking forward to this group and learning from everybody.
Cool. Thanks, Aaron. Anyone else want to share some stuff with the group? Carl?
Yes, I just have a question, and also just wanted to share some stuff. The track program has really helped me in my community because, you know, I have a lot of bigger, older Siberian elms here in Carbondale, and, you know, they take a lot of maintenance and they're kind of getting old and there's always issues. And it can be a big debate, right, between homeowners and the town. And so the track program, the tree risk assessment program has really helped me just kind of find this middle ground and really break things down. So I just wanted to say, anyone that's certified arborist, like, that's been really helpful for me. So it's something to look into for people that deal with a lot of tree risk.
Yeah, that's a great point. Sorry, I'm just going to jump in since you're on that topic. Vince Urbina is going to be giving a track course on the week of September 25th. So if you are, or any of your staff are interested in becoming track qualified, or if you need to renew your track certification, which is what I have to do, Vince is giving that track course the week of September 25th in Grand Junction. So put that on your calendar. So thank you, Carl, for that.
Yeah. And I took the class with Vince and it was really good. Really great class, really challenging, really makes you think about what you're looking at. And then the other thing, I just was curious if there's any chainsaw training classes kind of within the Roaring Fork Valley to Grand Junction. I have a technician that I'd like to get some training and get in a class. So that's just kind of a general question, and also a need, even if we were to work together. You know, I know there's like in Salida, the Wildfire Academy and stuff like that, you know, S212 kind of classes, but that's just kind of a general question. That's all I got.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Does anyone have any ideas on the chainsaw?
Carl, you might check with Aspen Tree Service and see if they do something. They may do something like that already.
Okay, yeah,
that's because they're idea. You know, locally, yeah, you could easily get over there and maybe participate. You know, and then annually, historically, when I was in your role previously, they would come to Cypress Park and do climbing, a climbing field day as well, which can be really nice for your crew to learn some skills that really are hands-on type of skills, right?
There's a guy.
I would just echo.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
I would also just echo that the track, I agree that track certification and having those standards to be able to use as a municipal forester are just so valuable, because it gives you something objective to work with, right, and standards to point to, in something that can be challenging to try to make objective, like tree risk, So even though it's not perfect, right, it is a really useful tool. So I agree with what you said, Carl. Track is a great program.
There is a guy in your valley, Nick, what is his name? Rob, Nick Close.
Yeah.
And he's come to Grand Junction to do trainings for us here.
Oh, cool.
So Rob just sent me an email saying, giving me his emails to add him to this group, but he's willing to come to Grand Junction to do training. So we should connect him with you all to do some up there.
Cool. Sweet.
Yeah. And we may jump in with you too, Carl.
But yeah, the whole Roaring Fork Valley for sure. Rob, what kind of trainings has he done in Junction?
He's done aerial rescue has been the main thing he's done. So I don't know what all he does with chainsaw maintenance. One of the things that I've done last 2 years is there's a group called North American Training Solutions, and they do some really good hands-on training. And if you can get, what I was doing was I was getting our staff and then mixing in local licensed tree services to kind of help soften the blow of the cost. But if you can get a group of 12 people that are interested, then you can bring that group in. And the nice thing about that training is it's not a sit down and watch a PowerPoint. It's, here's a chainsaw, practice your felling cuts, and you're actually running a saw with somebody that's there to kind of do that on hands training, which is really important for new people versus just watching videos.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Yeah. If you know, Carl, if you want that contact, just let me know. You can probably Google it, but.
Rob, why don't you send it to me and I'll put it in the notes that I'll share with everybody.
Okay. And then since you brought up Nick, he had called me today. I guess sounds like he's been working with ISA Rocky Mountain chapter to get the tree climbing championship in Paonia this coming summer.
Oh.
On June 17th. And he asked me to try to get the word out because he needs volunteers. So you don't have to be an expert climber to run a stopwatch. So it's more about getting people that are just into tree work, and, you know, they just want that support and they want to show. I think that it's always a goal of getting the chapter to push things this direction. And I think when they do, we need to try to get folks to step up and, you know, not be shorthanded just because it's over here. So if you guys have anybody interested, I will just use you, Kamie, and say, send them to Kamie. So.
And when it was in Grand Junction a few years ago, it was so cool. I ran a stopwatch, but it was just so cool to watch as well. Go ahead, Heather.
I wanted to also mention that we've got a couple of crew members in our trails and open spaces team that are actually going to Colorado Fire Camp. They've got a training course in Salida, and it's at the end of this month, and they do it several times a year, but it's actually, I think that it was initially for wildland firefighters, but it is a chainsaw training camp. And we've been sending Parks and Rec folks to go do that for years for open spaces. So it's a great place to get a little chainsaw training.
Is that the Colorado Wildfire Academy?
No.
Adam Moore sent a note in here about in Alamosa, June 5th to 9th. Or is that different?
This would be.
That's different.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is Colorado Fire Camp. And it is a course that is specifically for wildland fire chainsaw training.
Okay.
So, but it's mostly just a chainsaw training course.
And they both offer the same class. It's the same thing minus some slight differences in instructor stuff, but it's the same curriculum they have to cover on both classes, both places that offer it.
Cool.
I'll send a link in the chat too.
Perfect. Molly, you popped up. Did you want to share something?
No, but I was wondering, is chainsaw training something that the Rocky Mountain chapter could help facilitate? Like registration, or, you know, if we went with gnats or something like that, or is it just easier for a community? I just know gnats can be pricey. Good, but pricey. I don't know if they do that sort of thing.
I don't have much experience with you working with them with ISA Rocky Mountain chapter to run stuff. I know Rob's been trying to get a training here working with them, and I think it's been.
It's always, they can be helpful. Yes. How about that? So I'm trying to get Mark Dunteman to come to Grand Junction to do a Rocky Mountain chapter sponsored tree appraisal training on the 10th edition of the Guide for Plant and Landscape Appraisal. So I think they can help with kind of that coordination piece. But I think in the end, it's if NATS is charging this much, it's the challenge with NATS and hands-on is you can't bring down the cost by having a 40-person registration. It's like one instructor, max is 12 people. So it just is, it is what it is with cost. But I think it's just hard. I mean, it's like the, what is it, Arbor Pro? No. Is it Arbor Master? Is that the other training that's kind of like North American Training Solution? Anyway, similar sort of program, just, getting a high skilled person to come in, fly in, hotel for 2 days, it tends to be pricey. The real deal would be to get, some of our local people who have that skill set that are willing, to come out and do a training. That would be the better way, but it's just tough to run chainsaw safety training hands-on with a big group. So I've always struggled with it a little bit too. So I went to Nats because it was just the best solution with bringing on a bunch of new people. I just said, instead of sending people over to the fall conference or to Pro Green, we're just going to use our training budget to do this instead. But I don't know if I answered your question or not, but
yeah, thanks, Rob. Sarah, and see, you're in Buena Vista, right, Sarah? Yep. She asked about planting at her elevation. Chris had responded with a comment back, but Sarah says she wants to know what species people are thinking about or using, and what folks are doing in celebration for Arbor Day. We have about 10 minutes left. And I did want to talk real quick in the last couple minutes about structure like Carolina had recommended. So Chris, you want to say something real quick in response to Sarah's question?
Yeah, I just noted in the chat that Basalt's a level 2 accredited arboretum. So we're required by that accreditation to plant a certain number of new cultivars and species every year, which is exciting for me because that's like my favorite thing in the world to do. So we have like a strangely diverse number of trees that we trial in Basalt. A lot of them, I'm fully aware, probably are pushing the range of what they can handle. But I always like to see what can make it versus not make it. And I'd be happy to share our tree inventory with whoever wants it. It's all mapped on Tree Plotter. I can hand out the link for that, whoever wants to see it. And then just keep in mind, if you look at like some of the weirder stuff, I do know when it was planted, if I have a date. So a lot of it is in the last 2 years, and may or may not leaf out this year, depending on, since it was a pretty aggressive snow season this year.
Cool. Likewise, I'd be happy to share what we know works in Aspen at 8,000 feet, which the list starts to get pretty small of what's hardy and can deal with our local climate and conditions. But this year, we're actually updating our Aspen Arbor Guide, which is our planting guide that really focuses on trees that we know that have successfully established and had good service lives in the urban forest, and then some new and upcoming ones as well have been added in that we've been trialing. We have a few around town that work like hackberry and Kentucky coffee tree, and there's another one I'm forgetting, but some species like that have actually been working at our elevation. So happy to share similar information that Chris offered, tree inventory data, like how many do we have, how big are they, when were they planted. But we're trying some new species as well, or new cultivars, things like Norway maples and some of the old winners that have worked in Aspen. So happy to share.
Well, that kind of leads me into a question about how we could share some of this information, so I'm not having to spam people with emails. Like we could have some, information of tree species recommendation or lists that work in different communities, little folders of different information. What does anyone have something that works for sharing information that you think might work for a diverse group?
I use Google to share a lot of information, and I think Chris and a few others here, we've shared some stuff via Google. I don't know if that would work for anybody, but we could share our list as well that we're working on.
Yeah, I know I've used Google a lot as well. Is anyone not able to use Google through their work? Okay.
I don't have an account, but
yeah, I don't think you have to have an account. You have to have just permissions, and we could give permissions to everybody in the group. Okay, well, I'll start setting up some Google Docs, and if people are having issues, we'll pivot if we need to, but I think Google works well. So Sarah, did you want to add anything to your question?
We were also curious about Arbor Day celebrations. Here in BV, we choose our own date that works for us on our calendar, and then it's different every year. We're always planting trees. Sometimes we have an information booth. This year, we're actually going to be giving away 100 blue spruce little saplings, and we're hoping to plant maybe 13 trees for the town. Last year, we did over 20 trees as adopt-a-trees, which are in the right-of-ways. So it's different every year, but we do like to plant trees and then have some sort of educational aspect. We rarely get any sort of community participation, even though we do put it in the water bill, put it in the newspaper. So yeah, just curious what other folks are doing and how they're getting the word out.
Yeah, I think, Sarah, we're doing a very similar program for our Arbor Day. I try to keep it on Arbor Day just for simplicity, and I force myself to keep that day open for the year. But I think we're on a little bit smaller community that I'm working with to make those things all line up. I usually plant, I have one tree every year that I kind of designate as our Arbor Day tree that I plant somewhere, that is something nice that I buy from one of the local nurseries. And then usually we have a tree care company in the area that kind of donates their labor, and we go around and we pick a park that we add, 5 to 15 trees. This year we have a Peak Tree Works is lined up to do some volunteer work for us in one of our bigger parks that I'm working on restoring a manufactured wetland to make it more than just coyote willow. So we're going to be planting probably as many as I can get in a mini excavator to dig holes in a 6-hour span, number of trees in there. And then it's kind of weird that it always falls really close with Earth Day. And I actually get a lot more inquiries from the community about Earth Day events than Arbor Day events. And so in the end, I kind of end up tying the two together to some extent. So we do have another trail planting event going on for, it's labeled for Earth Day, but it actually falls in the same week as Arbor Day. So it's just kind of like one big green week event that we put on.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Donna?
Yes, thank you. This doesn't have to do with so much the tree diversity for your needs, but I was wondering about the maybe for next time or for down the road. This has been a wonderful way for people to get together and visit. And I was wondering if, the Front Range Urban Forestry Council, they have a president, a vice president, and a secretary, and then they kind of get together and determine what kind of programs that might be usable. So maybe just something to think about into the future. And maybe, Kamie, you're already thinking like that. But, you're already talking about the Google Doc folder, something that people can all access. And I know that sometimes just taking a survey, easy survey from you folks here in this room, just to kind of see what you want to hear about in some of these educational components, of which you can get this ISA CEUs, so I don't know if you're doing that today or not, but just some things on the mechanics of the structure, I guess, into the future.
Yeah, I didn't do it for this one, and but we can definitely do CEUs in the future. So I think that kind of leads into the next topic. So Sarah, I think just to finish up with that, I think some communities tie it in with other events, like the City of Grand Junction has the Southwest Arbor Fest, and so we've kind of tied it in together. If reaching out to schools, sometimes they'll want you to come plant a tree at their site, so then it's kind of a forced attendance to get those kid interactions. But it sounds like it's kind of interesting that you don't have a lot of community involvement. So I wonder if maybe some folks can reach out to Sarah. One of the things I'll add in the captive audience, one of the things I want to add in the Google Doc is contact information for everyone. So then if you had some ideas for Sarah, since we were running out of time, you could reach out to her. But yeah, it sounds like there's some ways that we could find some ways to help Buena Vista get some more community involvement. So we can talk about that offline. So real quick, we're almost at 11, talking about structure for this group. So Don, I wasn't sure how FREFCA was laid out. So they have a president, a vice president, and a secretary. Is that what you said? So is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Kamie, the other thing, I think they've got a connection to the Colorado Tree Coalition too. It's kind of like the only active chapter of the Colorado Tree Coalition. So there's a tie to that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob, thanks for saying that, because for example, there are 6 representatives from the FREFCA, Front Range Urban Forestry, to the Colorado Tree Coalition board as a voice. And we're, you know, COVID has not been a good thing, but then the virtual part of it is you can attend the Colorado Tree Coalition board meeting virtually. So it might be a discussion to have a number of representatives from the Intermountain be a part of that Colorado Tree Coalition, because there are a lot of activities. You know, you guys are involved with trees across Colorado. Some of your communities, I think, Basalt, Glenwood Springs, Grand Junction. I probably got some of those right or wrong, but, and not to mention, you're talking about the coach review and the tree collections. Those are all CTC. So having an ear into that is a great way to kind of hear about, you know, they have the select tree evaluation program because they are looking for diversity. That's been going on for 20 years. If you're on the board, then you can start thinking about things on the west slope that you'd like to see, or maybe start your own west slope version of that. So I don't know, just a lot of connectivity in that direction. Another discussion, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think we didn't build this discussion into this meeting, and I want to honor everyone's time. So I think maybe I'll include that as part of the survey, or we can include it in the agenda for the next meeting, just talk about how we want the structure. We kind of have a small subcommittee of planning that I reached out to get this started. So I'll also reach out to those people. And I see Chris saying that you're not aware of the STEP program. So there's lots of education and stuff we need to be sharing across the mountains. So we will work on improving that. I think that's on me a lot, since if I'm not sharing what needs to be shared.
Yeah, I participated in the STEP program last year. I just hadn't heard anything about it this year.
Oh, I see.
I pretty much exclusively rely on your emails to stay in the loop, Kamie. So
okay. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm over emailing folks. So.
No, the more emails, the better, honestly.
Oh, you're in trouble now. So I'll send out a survey. We'll get something figured out so we can get this on people's calendars for the next one. But I will do kind of a summary of stuff we talked about and share the link to this recording if you wanted to review anything that was talked about, and then I'll get the PowerPoints and share those with the group as well. Probably just putting them in that Google Drive, so I'm not overburdening I'm not pushing the size limit on emails. But anyone else want to say anything in closing?
I'll just really quick. One of my favorite things that we do for Arbor Day is we do a tree seedling distribution to people's doorsteps. So next week we launch our form, and it's like our tree seedling DoorDash, which is just, we have seedlings on Arbor Day too. But Molly, Kamie, I need to talk to you guys, because the way that program really works is we rely on volunteers to run those routes and do the door drop. So Molly and Kamie, I need to know if I got some master gardeners lined up to drive baby trees to people. So
we're on it.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun, especially when there's Ring doorbells. I do a little seedling dance when I put them down. Melissa, did you want to add anything?
I just wanted to thank everybody, and Kamie especially, for setting this up. This has been great to be a part of this group, and look forward to working with everyone and hearing more in the future.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate everyone's time today. It was I really enjoyed the presentations and the conversations, so thank you. All right, we got lots of future things to work on. I'm excited. Well, I mean, if people want to stick on, I am not rushing anybody. So.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Rob, before you leave, where are you getting seedlings from?
So I want to give away all my sources, but
see, it's all people from the Roaring Fork Valley that are like, oh, we need these.
I know, right?
The real deal is Scott Skogerbo from Fort Collins Wholesale. Like I had him, he'll go as far as I collected seeds from we've got the state champion mimosa here in Grand Junction. And so we'll collect seeds from trees that are like local, and he'll turn them into seedlings for us. And then there's a company out of Oregon called Heritage Seedlings. They've got a great online source or resource, really easy to look through the catalog. And I use that program to kind of test the waters on things, you know, that are a little more unusual. And then I also, you know, get some really rugged stuff too, like Scott's got a tree called Gila Monster Gamble Oak that is coming from a parent tree in New Mexico, kind of right on the New Mexico-Arizona border. It's like a 7,000 foot elevation, -30 lows, annual precip of like, you know, 10 inches. And it's a single stem burr gamble hybrid. And so those are just getting weird stuff like that. And, you know, letting people try different things is what I really like about that program. So those are the two places I source them.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. We've been struggling to get, you know, good seedlings, good quality seedlings in here.
Yeah, both those places are good. Scott will give you pots. The trick, and it's funny, bring it up, Heritage arrived during this meeting. They ship all their seedlings out in these big, massive, like kind of like a ball of roots. And then you have to actually pot them yourself, which is a little bit of a challenge, but you could get more creative. But I'm always worried about giving away bare root trees. So it's nice to give away a small seedling in a container. They just seem to have higher survivability. We started that DoorDash program in COVID because I had ordered a whole bunch of seedlings and then Arbor Day fell apart. And we just threw out this idea, like, what if we just did this? And of course, it just stuck because everybody's thought it was nice to come home and just have seedlings on their doorstep. And it's a fun way to get our forestry board involved and get master gardeners involved. And I like to think some of those folks that go through the effort of signing up for a form are some of the people in town that might actually want and care for these seedlings a little more strongly than somebody that just happened to, you know, go to the Southwest Arbor Fest for beer drinking and other things and just picked up a seedling. And we split them up about 500 to do that door delivery program. And then we give out about 500 on Arbor Day.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a mix.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Scott is a master propagator. If you don't know Scott Skogerbo, he's like the legit Colorado propagator. So
awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I stuck my email in the chat. If you guys, you know, feel free to send me a message if you have questions.
Thank you.
And I'll put something together. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good Friday.
Nice to see y'all.